Paramount Plus launches today in the UK, and with it a mountain of entertainment, including the latest video game adaptation, Halo. The first 3 episodes are now streaming. Let's talk about it. Set in the year 2552, humans find themselves in conflict with an alien threat known as the Covenant. It's up to Master Chief John 117 and his super soldiers, the Spartans, to step into the fight and protect humanity until a controversial order comes in and has John questioning his mission and himself. Now, before I probably start with my spoiler-free review for the first 3 episodes of Halo, big thank you to the team at Paramount Plus UK for granting me a chance to see this one early so I could provide this review for you for the launch. Again, it's open today here in the UK, and I want to know your thoughts on the show, on the games. How does the show compare? Anything and everything down there. And if you love movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. And as a point of reference, I am not familiar with the games at all. When I was a kid, I could only have one console and I chose PlayStation, so I've never been a Halo guy. I'm watching this not as a fan of the games, not familiar at all with the games. I'm watching this as a fan of sci-fi. And as a fan of sci-fi, these first 3 episodes lay a lot of groundwork, do a lot of world building for the overall show. In the grand scope of things, it sets up a lot of the conflict, of the world building in the show, all the elements of it, and shows immense potential for where it could go. At this point, I'm just not sure where it will go. It just feels a little bit too vague, like we're still doing a lot of setup 3 episodes in. So when it comes to the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the grand scope of the series, I'm just not that interested. It's fun, but it is familiar. There is a lot of action, there's a lot of other familiar sci-fi tropes, and while they are not necessarily negatives, I'm just not emotionally engaged with the show yet, again, when it comes to the grand scheme of things. I am, however, much more interested in the personal strife of Master Chief, played by Pablo Schreiber. Again, I am not too familiar with the games, but I do know that this character never takes his helmet off in the games. That's probably because it is a first-person shooter. You're supposed to be Master Chief, but what I like that this show does is that slowly but surely throughout these first 3 episodes, throughout this setup stage of the series, gives him more and more humanity as the episodes go by, as when the Spartans are presented in this opening action sequence that is long. It's like 20 minutes long, and it's brutal and it's adrenaline fueled with great special effects, with the Spartans fighting the Covenant immediately as the show opens. And then the Spartans come in and they kick ass. The action sequences are really great and really violent. And the Spartans are presented as this one unit. They're all the same. There's no individuality between them. They're almost like these tools that the USNC is using to get rid of the Covenant and get to whatever their goal is, which is another thing that I like that the show does, but we'll get to that in a bit, where again, all these Spartans, all the same, until Master Chief starts to take off his helmet. He comes in contact with this object that reveals certain secrets about himself that he's not even privy to. And that's what I'm mostly connecting to in the show thus far. It's Master Chief realizing these hidden truths about him, starting to question the orders he's following, his fellow Spartans are following, and really starting to have this sort of critical thinking about himself and the mission he is serving. That gives him a lot of humanity, that gives him a lot of complexity, and that is easy to be engaged by. That's exactly what I'm gravitating towards in this show thus far. And Pablo Schreiber plays him really well. There's this really nice nuance to how he's struggling with the truth that he's always considered to be the truth, and now these new ideas that he's realizing might contrast with his view of the world and of the USNC. And I like how the show portrays the USNC and the Covenant in a very ambiguous way. Both of these sides of good and evil fighting against one another, they're both clearly out for their own personal gain. They have little to no consideration for anyone underneath them. They're using tools of war. In the case of the Covenant, it's themselves. In the case of the USNC, it's the Spartans. And I like that. There's ambiguity in that. That's more interesting than just painting these two sides in black and white colors. That moral ambiguity really works to make you suspicious of all sides, and that creates for more interesting conflict. But on the other hand, it also makes for the characters on each side very vague and uninteresting. You're not really allowed to attach to anyone other than Master Chief, and while that enhances how emotionally connected you can be with the show's protagonist, it also leaves everyone else to the side. It leaves them very much vague, and I just can't really remember anyone's name so far. And episode 3 really starts to pick up things, really starts to converge some of these storylines and putting characters in interesting positions in their interpersonal relationships and all that. It's just that it only really starts to get going in episode 3 after 2 episodes that feel very much like vague setup in a lot of uninteresting ways. And with that said, I need to go back a little bit to how the first 2 episodes are very much strong setup. That is both good in a sense, but also takes a little bit away from the experience. It's good because they clearly have a plan for where this show will go in the long run, and that creates for a lot of potential for all the interesting directions that they could go. They could maybe trick you, they could maybe have some twists and surprises coming that I'm not privy to. I don't recognize any of these beats within the context of Halo, but it shows potential. It just doesn't seem to show any idea concretely of where it could go with any of these characters. For as much as I really care for Master Chief, I don't really care about anyone else. I like the setup. I like the very premise of the show. I love the violence in this show. These intriguing sci-fi concepts, as familiar as they can be, show potential for how this show can pull them off in its own unique way. But again, other than our lead protagonist, who's slowly but surely finding his humanity, or maybe finding his humanity, I'm just not hooked yet. It's hard to put into words because it's not a show I have a huge issues with. I'm just waiting to be hooked by it, to be engaged by the story, which starts to advance a little bit in the 3rd episode. I think the 1st episode does a really good job at showing us the action, at setting up the stakes and the conflict, and then episode 2 feels a bit more of the same. It's only in the 3rd episode for me that we start to get a feel and a sense of direction for our characters and for the conflict at hand between USNC and the Covenant. While Halo may feel familiar in its setup, it shows potential for where its massive universe may go. 3 episodes in, and while the action is violent and exhilarating, it's only when it goes small scale and focuses on Master Chief's personal struggles that it works the best. But those are only my thoughts on Halo. Let me know what you think of the show. How does it compare to the games? Anything and everything down there. And if you want to watch the episodes for yourself here in the UK, Paramount Plus has just launched, so go check that out. Big thank you to the team over there for granting me a chance to watch this one early, and thank you for watching. Big thank you to my channel members for always supporting the channel, and I'll be back very soon with more videos. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.